Mặc dù trạm cư trú liên hành tinh số 47 nằm giữa một hành lang sao bị bỏ quên, nơi ấy lúc nào cũng đông đúc những sinh vật đến từ khắp những nền văn minh khác nhau. Họ đến để ký hợp đồng hôn phối, trao đổi văn hóa hoặc tìm kiếm một sự gắn kết mà chính thế giới của họ không thể cho. Nhưng giữa những cuộc gặp gỡ rộn ràng ấy, có một căn phòng luôn im lặng đến mức đáng sợ, căn phòng nơi Elia, cô dâu dì tộc bị tê liệt từ ngực trở xuống, đang chờ định đoạt số phận. Căn phòng được thiết kế bằng vật liệu sinh học phát sáng nhẹ nhẹ, trông vừa ấm áp vừa lạnh lẽo như một tổ kén bị bỏ rơi. Ánh sáng tím yếu ớt từ cơ thể Elia phản chiếu trên tường, tạo ra thứ ánh sáng đẹp đến kỳ lạ nhưng cũng đầy nỗi cô đơn. Những dây nối sinh học cắm vào lưng cô chuyển động rất nhẹ, như những sợi tơ phát sáng đang cố giữ cô sống. Dù cơ thể bất động, đôi mắt của cô vẫn luôn mở, quan sát thế giới bằng sự tỉnh táo khiến người ta khó chịu vì không biết phải đối diện thế nào. Trước khi bị từ chối, Elia từng thuộc về một gia tộc danh giá trên hành tinh Avazon. Ở đó, vẻ đẹp và sức mạnh thần kinh là hai thứ được đánh giá cao nhất. Khi một tai nạn khiến hệ thần kinh dưới của cô bị phá hủy, gia tộc quyết định gửi cô đến liên minh theo chương trình ghép hôn thiện chí, một cách nói văn hoa cho việc đẩy cô đi thật xa. Không ai trong gia tộc muốn thú nhận rằng họ thấy cô là điều xấu hổ, nhưng Elia hiểu. Mỗi ánh nhìn họ dành cho cô đều mang theo một lời nói thầm kín, con không còn hữu dụng. Trong suốt 3 tháng ở trạm cư trú, hơn 80 ứng viên từng đến xem hồ sơ của cô. Không ai chọn cô. Người thì sợ trách nhiệm chăm sóc, người thì ngại cơ thể tê liệt của cô. Có người nhìn thẳng vào mặt cô rồi quay đi, nói rằng họ không muốn phí thời gian. Từ lúc ấy, Elia im lặng hơn, ánh sáng trên da cô mờ dần. Cô chấp nhận rằng bản thân chỉ là một món đồ bị trả lại quá nhiều lần đến mức không còn ai muốn kiểm tra chất lượng nữa. Vào một buổi sáng trông không có gì đặc biệt, anh, một người đàn ông trái đất bình thường, dáng vẻ có phần mệt mỏi, xuất hiện trong hành lang. Anh không đến đây để tìm vợ, anh chỉ đi ngang qua để hoàn tất thủ tục di dân sau khi mất vợ vài năm trước trong một tai nạn. Bàn tay anh nắm chặt tay con gái nhỏ, bé Linh. Cô bé có đôi mắt tò mò đến mức có thể nhìn xuyên qua lớp vỏ lạnh lùng của bất kỳ ai. Cả hai đi ngang phòng Elia, và chính cô bé là người dừng lại trước. Ánh sáng tím từ cơ thể Elia khẽ bùng lên khi bé Linh nhìn vào cửa kính. Không ai hiểu tại sao trẻ con thường nhìn thấy thứ mà người lớn bỏ qua. Nhưng Linh mỉm cười và nói nhỏ, ba ơi, chị ấy buồn. Chỉ một câu thật đơn giản mà như kéo anh dừng lại, buộc anh nhìn vào người phụ nữ đang nằm bất động kia. Anh không biết vì sao ánh mắt Elia khiến anh không thể rời đi ngay. Trong đôi mắt tím nhạt ấy có thứ gì đó mệt mỏi đến mức như đang chờ một lời nói cuối cùng để từ bỏ thế giới này. Anh chỉ nhìn vài giây rồi bước tiếp, anh đâu có lý do gì để quan tâm. Nhưng hình ảnh ấy cứ bám lấy anh cả ngày, như một nhịp đập lỡ mất của trái tim khiến anh không tìm được sự bình yên. Trong khi đó, Elia nghĩ rằng anh chỉ là một người qua đường khác, và cô đã quá quen với việc người ta nhìn cô rồi rời đi ngay sau đó. Nhưng lần này có gì đó khác. Đứa trẻ đã mỉm cười với cô. Lần đầu tiên sau nhiều tháng, ánh sáng trên da cô chuyển sang sắc tím ấm thay vì tím lạnh. Một thay đổi nhỏ đến mức chính cô cũng không tin. Đêm xuống, cô nghĩ về đôi mắt của người đàn ông đó. Dù chỉ trong vài giây, cô nhận thấy điều mà những kẻ từng xem hồ sơ của cô không bao giờ có, sự do dự chứa nhân tính. Không phải sợ hãi, không phải thương hại, mà giống như anh nhìn thấy một điều gì đó mà chính cô tưởng đã biến mất từ lâu, một phần của cô vẫn còn giá trị. Sáng hôm sau, anh quay lại hành lang đó. Anh tự bảo rằng chỉ tình cờ đi ngang, nhưng trái tim anh biết rõ lý do. Anh dừng trước cánh cửa, chần chừ vài giây như đấu tranh giữa việc bước vào hay bỏ đi mãi mãi. Khi cửa tự động mở và anh thấy Elia đang nhìn mình từ xa, một cảm giác lạ lùng lan khắp người anh, không phải thương hại, mà là một mối liên kết vô hình nào đó. Cô khẽ chớp mắt, một cử động nhỏ nhưng đầy nỗ lực, như lời chào. Anh bước vào, và thế giới lặng đi trong khoảnh khắc ấy. Không ai trong hai người biết rằng chính cuộc gặp tưởng chừng ngắn ngủi và vô nghĩa này sẽ là nơi mọi thứ bắt đầu, một lựa chọn, một lời hứa, và một tương lai mà không ai dám nói tên, nhưng cả hai đều đã vô thức bước về phía nó.
The snowfall had been gentle at first, a quiet curtain drifting over the neon-lit streets of Nava City, but by evening it thickened into a soft, shimmering haze that made every sound feel distant. In the glow of holiday lights, people hurried along with wrapped gifts and warm drinks, laughing with the kind of comfort that belonged to families, couples, and anyone who wasn't spending Christmas alone.
Kayla, however, moved through the crowd like a faint shadow, tall,
Slender and unmistakably alien despite the hood she kept low over her forehead ridges. Her hearing organs, smooth and silver blue, pulsed faintly against the winter air, useless to her no matter how loud the world became. Silence was her constant companion. She paused outside the entrance of the Blind Date Cafe, reading the hollow display messages projected above the door. Her translator pin blinked steady green, letting her know she was ready to communicate when needed. She had rehearsed every gesture, every polite smile, every way she could show she wasn't as strange or difficult as people assumed. Tonight was supposed to be her fresh start, a Christmas date arranged by an agency that promised no prejudice, no fear, only connection. Yet as she stepped inside, she felt the familiar tightness in her chest, the fear of being seen before being known. Her date sat at a corner table, already scrolling through his wrist pad. When he finally looked up, his expression flickered through curiosity, disappointment, and resignation in the space of a second. Kayla raised her hand in greeting, her translator pin activating to speak for her, but before the device could form words, he stood abruptly. "I didn't realize," he muttered, glancing at her hearing organs the way someone might look at a fracture in a window. "Look, I'm sorry. This isn't what I expected." She tried to sign quickly, hoping he might understand even a single gesture, but he stepped back, shaking his head. "I can't do this. Merry Christmas." Then he hurried past her, leaving nothing but a faint warmth in the space he'd occupied. Kayla remained still for a moment, her translator pin blinking uselessly into the air. She could feel the sympathetic glances from nearby tables, the murmurs she couldn't hear but had learned to recognize from years of reading lips. "Poor thing, she shouldn't date humans, someone else will take her place. Better luck next time." Even the cafe lights felt harsh now. She stepped back outside, snow gathering in the grooves of her ridges. She didn't cry, her species rarely cried, but her chest tightened with a loneliness that needed no translation. Christmas on Earth was supposed to be magical, healing. Instead, it felt like a reminder that some doors stayed closed no matter how gently she knocked. She turned toward the bus station, preparing for another silent ride home, when she noticed two small figures huddled on the bench beneath the flickering holiday garland. They were twins, human girls, maybe 7 or 8 years old, bundled in matching red coats with oversized scarves. One had lost a glove, the other held it tightly, warming it between her palms as though determined to chase the cold away by will alone. Their faces lit up when they saw Kayla, not with fear or confusion, but with the kind of open curiosity she had only ever seen in children. The braver of the two lifted a hand in greeting, not waving, but signing, slow, careful, slightly clumsy. "Hello. Are you cold?" Kayla froze. She hadn't expected anyone on Earth, much less a child, to use alien sign language. She responded instinctively, her fingers moving with a soft fluidity. "No. I'm all right. Do you need help? Are you waiting for someone?" The second twin shook her head, signing with even more caution than her sister. "We were waiting, but she didn't come." Kayla knelt to their eye level, her movements gentle. "Where is your father?" The girls exchanged a look that said more than words. Finally, the first one signed. "We don't have one. But we're looking for a mom." "A new one." A breath caught in Kayla's throat, subtle but sharp, as though the cold air had turned suddenly solid. The sentence unfolded inside her, not just in her mind but in her heart, simple, sincere, impossibly heavy. The older twin reached forward and touched Kayla's hand, her small fingers warm despite the winter night. "Can you," she spoke out loud now, because she knew Kayla could read lips, "be our new mom?" The world seemed to quiet even further, as if the falling snow had paused midair to hear Kayla's answer. She stared at the twins, at their fragile hope and the strange fate that had brought them to her. She didn't know their story yet, didn't know why they were alone on a night meant for families, but she understood the plea in their eyes more deeply than any spoken word. Kayla exhaled slowly, feeling a warmth spread through her chest that no rejection could dim. She didn't know what she could offer them. Not yet, but she knew one thing with absolute certainty. Fate had placed these children in her path on a night when she had believed she had no place at all. And that alone was enough to make her offer her hand to them, steady and open. The twins placed their small palms into hers at the same time, as though they had rehearsed it. And for the first time that Christmas, the night didn't feel cold. The cafe's holiday lights were still glowing softly when Jace returned with 2 cups of hot cocoa balanced in his hands. He hadn't expected anyone to still be inside, much less the 2 little girls who were now perched on the edge of a chair, staring at the alien woman as if she were some gentle mythical creature they had only heard about in bedtime stories. Their coats were too thin for the winter night, and their cheeks were flushed with cold, yet their curiosity glowed warmer than anything in the room. Lyra didn't notice Jace at first. Her focus was fixed on the girls' small hands as they waved awkwardly in her direction, hands signing a clumsy greeting in a mixture of human sign language and a fumbling attempt at her species' gesture dialect. Her breath hitched. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't even correct. But it was an attempt. No one had ever tried to meet her halfway before. Jace hesitated near the counter, uncertain whether he should intervene or let the moment unfold. He recognized the twins immediately, Anna and Aaron, 7 years old, frequent visitors after school. Their mother worked double shifts at the station, often picking them up late. But tonight, she was even later than usual. Anna looked up at Lyra, then at Jace. "Sir, she didn't hear us the first time. So we tried again. We learned this from a video." Aaron nodded, her braids bouncing. "We wanted to say hello to her. Is she sad?" The question cut deeper than they knew. Jace glanced at Lyra, and for a second, she seemed frozen, caught between fear and longing. He placed the cups on the table and signed slowly to her. "They want to know if you're okay." She blinked, her throat tightening. "I don't know," she signed back. "I didn't expect kindness today." Anna leaned forward. "Do you want to sit with us? We're waiting for Mommy. She's an hour late." Lyra turned toward the children, her fingers trembling as she tried to sign something simple and universal. "Thank you." The girls' faces lit up like Christmas decorations. They scooted aside, making room for her, even though the chair was too small and the table too wobbly. Jace watched silently, struck by how seamlessly the twins accepted her. No hesitation, no fear. Children saw truth more clearly than adults, and the truth here was simple. Lyra was gentle. She sat slowly, folding her hands on her lap to steady herself. The twins pepper her with questions, not spoken, but in gestures, drawings, and little notes scribbled on napkins. She answered where she could, her expression softening each time they looked at her as though she was someone worth listening to. Jace cleaned behind the counter to give them privacy, though his attention kept drifting back to the table. He'd seen Lyra only once before tonight, alone at a blind date arranged by his coworker, waiting for someone who never showed. When she realized she had been rejected without explanation, without even a chance, she walked away with the stiff, controlled silence of someone who'd learned not to expect kindness from strangers. Now, watching her with the twins, Jace saw something change. A small shift. A quiet unfolding. Erin suddenly held up a drawing she had made. 3 stick figures, 2 small and 1 tall in the center. Lyra tilted her head, studying it. Erin pointed at the tall one. "That's you," she said, as if it were obvious. "And that's us." Anna chimed in. "We wanted to ask you something important, but you have to promise not to get mad." Lyra stiffened slightly. "What is it?" Anna and Erin exchanged a dramatic glance, then both held up their hands and signed, slowly but clearly. "Will you be our new mom?" Lyra's breath caught. Her heart stuttered, then thudded painfully. She didn't know what startled her more, the innocence of the question, or how desperately a part of her wanted to say yes, even though she knew she shouldn't. She'd been alone for so long. Too long. But she couldn't be reckless. She couldn't mislead them. She couldn't. Jace stepped forward quickly, but gently. "Girls," he murmured, crouching beside them, "you can't just ask someone that. It's a very big question." Anna frowned. "But we like her," Erin added, "and she looks lonely." Lyra lowered her gaze, unable to hide the flicker of pain the words ignited. Children had a way of cutting straight into the softest parts of a person's heart. Jace softened his voice. I know, but your mom isn't coming tonight, Anna said firmly. She texted and said she has to work until morning. Lyra's eyes lifted slowly, meeting Jace's. He saw something vulnerable there, something that made him catch his breath. She wasn't just lonely. She was starved for connection in a universe that treated her hearing loss and her alien origins as burdens rather than simple truths. Aaron reached for Lyra's hand. We just want someone who listens. Or someone who tries. Lyra swallowed hard. She squeezed Aaron's hand gently, carefully, as though afraid she might break the moment. She signed slowly, the words forming with deliberate tenderness. I don't know if I can be your mom, but I can stay with you tonight.
If you want that.
Both girls squealed with joy, wrapping their arms around her waist in a tangle of warmth and small limbs. Lyra froze for a heartbeat, then let herself melt into the embrace, her fingers trembling as she held them close. Jace watched, struck silent. Something profound was forming in front of him, gentle, impossible, and fragile enough to shatter with the wrong word. But for now, in the glow of the cafe lights, it felt like hope. Snow continued falling in slow, hushed spirals outside the cafe window as Lyra stood frozen in place, unable to fully process what had just happened. The twins had spoken with such pure sincerity that even without hearing their voices, she had felt every ounce of emotion radiating from them. Their small hands tugging at her sleeves lingered like a ghost of warmth on her skin. She wasn't sure what frightened her more, the unexpected invitation they had offered, or the sudden ache in her chest when she realized how much she wanted to accept it. She had spent years constructing walls around herself, quiet, unassuming barriers meant to keep her from wanting anything she believed she couldn't have. Yet in a single moment, 2 human children had pierced through those defenses as if they were nothing but thin paper. James noticed her trembling before she did. He stepped closer, careful not to startle her, and gently set a hand on her forearm. His touch was light, almost hesitant, but grounding enough that she exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. He didn't try to speak immediately. Instead, he waited until she met his gaze, letting her see that he wasn't frustrated or confused, only concerned. When he finally signed, his movements were steady, slow enough to be impossible to misinterpret. Are you all right? She shook her head before nodding, unable to decide which answer was truer. The twins stood inches away, watching with innocent, wide-eyed patience. They didn't understand her distress. They only understood their own simple desire. They liked her, they wanted her near, and they didn't want a single moment of kindness to be the last one. There was something wondrously fearless in that. Children ask for what adults spend their whole lives convincing themselves they don't deserve. Lyra sank onto the nearest chair, and the twins immediately positioned themselves beside her, one on each side as if guarding her from collapsing into the loneliness she'd carried for so long. James crouched in front of them, his face softening into an expression she had never seen directed at her before. Not pity, not obligation. Something steadier, something that unsettled her because it felt safe. I'm sorry, he spoke aloud while signing simultaneously, ensuring she received every detail. They didn't mean to overwhelm you. They've been missing something for a long time. The subtle sadness in his expression made her chest tighten again. She had assumed he was simply a single father managing life one day at a time, but the shadows in his voice hinted at deeper wounds. She wanted to ask, but she knew now wasn't the moment. Instead, she pressed her palms against the table to steady herself before signing back. I don't know what to do. I don't understand why they chose me. James let out a faint breath, something close to a laugh, but heavy with emotion. Because they don't judge the way adults do. They don't see what you fear they'll see. They see kindness. They see someone who listened to them even when the world wasn't paying attention. The twins nodded vigorously, confirming his interpretation. One of them reached for Lyra's hand again, tiny fingers curling around hers in a gesture so trusting it nearly shattered her. She looked down at that small, warm hand against her colder, alien skin, and her pulse stuttered. She hadn't realized how starved she was for simple human contact, gentle, uncalculated, freely offered. A quiet tension settled between her and James, the kind that hums with possibility. He studied her carefully, as if trying to understand every thought she wasn't yet ready to voice. Outside the window, the city lights flickered against the snow, casting a glow that painted them all in soft gold. For the first time in many years, the silence surrounding Lyra didn't feel isolating. It felt shared. James finally broke the stillness. "There's something else," he said, lowering his voice. "Someone else was supposed to show up for that blind date today. The person who matched with you online." His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. They didn't come because they assumed alien meant inconvenient. I overheard them bragging about it to a friend. They laughed when they said they'd rather spend Christmas alone than sit across from someone who communicates differently. The words hit harder than Lyra expected. She had known rejection before, but hearing the cruelty spoken aloud, especially during a season built on connection, left her breath unstable. She lifted her hands to sign a response, but James gently shook his head. "You don't need to defend yourself," he said, his voice soft but certain. "And you don't deserve the way people treat you. Not tonight. Not ever." Something warm flickered in her chest, something dangerously close to hope. She stared at him, searching for any hint of insincerity, and found none. The twins leaned against her arms, as if they already considered her part of their family. For a moment, she allowed herself to imagine what a life with them might look like. Soft mornings, quiet dinners, gentle hands on her cheeks when the silence grew too loud. The image terrified her as much as it comforted her. James straightened slightly, drawing a breath that carried the weight of a decision he had been circling for minutes. "If you're comfortable," he said, choosing each word carefully, "we'd like to spend the rest of the evening with you. No expectations. No pressure. Just company. Warmth. Maybe a little joy where it's been missing." The twins' faces lit up instantly, their excitement almost tangible. Lyra felt the room tilt around her, not with fear, but with the dizzying sensation of a door opening, one she wasn't sure she was brave enough to step through, yet desperately longed to. She looked at James, at the twins, at her own trembling hands. And slowly, as if afraid the moment might vanish if she moved too quickly, she nodded. Whatever happened next, she realized, would change her life in ways she wasn't prepared for. But for the first time in a long time, the unknown didn't feel like a threat. It felt like an invitation. Snow fell in slow, deliberate flakes, drifting like quiet blessings as Lyra stepped out onto the balcony. The city below shimmered with holiday lights, but her attention rested on the two small figures leaning against her legs, Mira and Lonnie, the twin girls who had rewritten the course of her life with a single innocent question: "Can you be our new mom?" It was strange how quickly their voices had become anchors in her existence. For a woman who had once convinced herself she deserved nothing, the warmth of their trust felt almost unreal. Behind them, Daniel watched silently, one hand wrapped around a steaming mug while the other rested on the doorframe. His eyes held something she didn't quite know how to name: gratitude, maybe, or a fragile hope he hoped she wouldn't notice. Since their unexpected meeting at the disastrous Christmas blind date, he had moved through their days like someone unsure of whether joy belonged to him. She understood that feeling intimately. Perhaps that shared uncertainty was why they kept orbiting each other instead of drifting apart. The twins giggled as Lyra brushed snow off their hair. They had accepted her differences without hesitation, her unusual skin tone, her silent speech, the way her hands moved in complex gestures instead of words. They mirrored her signs now, clumsy but eager, and every time they tried, Lyra felt an ache behind her ribs, equal parts gratitude and longing. No adult had ever tried half as hard to understand her as these 6-year-olds did naturally. Daniel stepped closer, his expression softening. "Cold?" He signed slowly, haltingly. His fingers trembled, not from the winter chill, but from the effort. She answered with a small smile and a gentle correction to his last gesture. He repeated it, more confident this time. For a moment, the world felt still. Inside the living room, the fire crackled, filling the home with an amber glow. It wasn't Lyra's home, not really. Yet she felt her pulse settle here, in the warmth, in the laughter, in the gentle routine that had formed around her presence. And that frightened her. Happiness, she had learned long ago, was a fragile thing, easy to break, easier to lose. Daniel seemed to sense the shift in her mood. He moved beside her, close enough that their shoulders brushed. The twins ran ahead, dragging a box of ornaments toward the tree they'd forced him to buy earlier. One of the girls had insisted Lyra hang the star. "Pretty lady should do it," she declared, as though beauty alone determined worth. Daniel cleared his throat. "They love you," he said aloud, then repeated the thought in signs, slower, more careful. His voice was gentle, uncertain. "I mean, they've never attached to someone this fast." Lyra lowered her gaze, fingers tightening around the balcony railing. She signed back, "Children are honest. They follow warmth." She hesitated before adding, "Not everyone does." Daniel understood more than she expected. "You think I'll disappear," he said quietly. The words struck harder than she wanted them to. She didn't answer. Instead, she watched Mira trip over the ornament box and laugh as Lonnie helped her up. Those two little hearts had already trusted her far more than she trusted herself. Daniel shifted closer. "Lyra," he said, voice low, "you're not temporary." She looked at him, searching for signs of pity or obligation. There were none. Only sincerity, which somehow made it more terrifying. She signed, "You don't know my past. My failures. Why I don't stay anywhere long." He exhaled slowly. "Then tell me."
"Tell us."
"Or don't. But don't walk away, because you think you're protecting us." His throat tightened. "The girls already love you. And he hesitated, searching for courage he wasn't sure he possessed. "I don't want to lose you either." The room behind them glowed with soft holiday lights, and the twins began placing ornaments in the wrong spots with proud, chaotic intent. Lyra watched them for a long moment, her chest tightening. She had spent years believing she was unlovable, a quiet mistake in a loud universe. Yet here, in this small apartment with mismatched furniture, 2 children and a man were offering her something she'd never dared imagine.
Family.
She stepped inside, heart pounding. Mira looked up instantly. "Star time?" she whispered as if sharing a sacred secret. Lyra nodded. The girl squealed, handing her the fragile silver ornament. Daniel steadied the small stool for her, his hand lingering near her back, not pushing, not rushing, just there, as quiet reassurance. She placed the star atop the tree. The lights reflected against her skin, casting shimmering patterns she had always been self-conscious of. But tonight, under the twins' adoring eyes, it felt almost beautiful. Mira tugged her sleeve. "Mom," she whispered, testing the word like something delicate. Lyra froze. Her breath hitched. Daniel looked at her gently, offering neither pressure nor escape, only patience. The girl repeated, softer this time, "Mom, can I call you that?" Lonnie, who had been watching, joined in with wide, hopeful eyes. "Please." Lyra knelt, pulling them into her arms. She didn't know when the tears came, only that they were warm, unsteady, and impossible to stop. She touched the twins' cheeks and signed in small, trembling gestures, "If you want me, I will stay." Daniel exhaled in relief so palpable it filled the room. The twins hugged her so tightly she thought her heart might break from the force of it. She looked up at Daniel through damp lashes. He smiled, soft, careful, overwhelmingly sincere. And for the first time in years, Lyra allowed herself to believe that maybe she had finally found a place where her silence wasn't a burden. A place where she belonged.